Hello, welcome back to In the Court of the Wenton King. Yes, well, now. You didn't never lose his hand there. Yeah, but it was that up. That's kind of really strong, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just wasted 2 tea bags. Okay, so first of all, competition winner!
We have an announcement to make. We finally have a winner of A Trick of the Tail. We asked our viewers to give us a quick review of Madman Moon from this album, and we had literally
Numbers of entries.
But we picked a winner who we thought was the funniest and at random and entered via Twitter. Okay, so and the winner is Michael from County Down, and his review of Madman Moon was 8. Congratulations, Michael.
That's me! I've won!
It has made me, you know, I was a little bit down on this album at the time. It seems to be an album you cannot literally give away.
So sorry, he's going to keep it now.
So maybe I wasn't that far off the mark after all.
But you are still giving it away.
Yeah, I'm still giving it away.
Yeah,
Michael,
so
you'll be getting this. Just give us, you know.
So, yes, the Doors. I don't have a lot to say this week. I've got a bit to say. But if you want to hear what I think of the Doors, listen to a review of the first album. This second album is confirming my fears that the first album is going to be the best album. But it was actually them just recording the other songs they'd already written.
Yeah, I mean, you would assume that the best songs would go on the first album.
Which is a common thing with bands. But here, I think they put the best stuff on the other album. Most.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of good things on here.
But in another way, it is a progression from the last album in that it is much more well produced. This is all shiny and hides the rough edges of their playing, so it sounds much smoother and nicer. Whether that's a good thing or not is the question, but it's certainly much more well produced, which makes it much more easy to listen to. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I mean, the interesting thing about this sort of period is the Doors are one of those early bands that people are buying into for more than just the albums.
Yeah.
Sort of the Beatles, everyone loved the Beatles, yeah, but going to a live Beatles concert was an opportunity to go up at the band and scream.
Yeah.
Doors moved on and moved things on a little bit from there. Things that we saw with Led Zeppelin and Deep Purple and that crowd really becoming part of the live show started with the Doors.
Yeah, and bands of their ilk.
They were going to see what would happen at the event and sort of what craziness would go on. So it is interesting times. This is sort of like a very transitional period between the old and the new.
Yeah, and however critical we may end up being about how generic the music may sound, this is a turning point in concert promoters booking esoteric music and record companies backing esoteric music, not understanding it at all, just leaving them to get on with it. And the Doors were a big part of that because they were big. They sold a lot of records.
I actually believe, I know we sort of mentioned it last week about Jim Morrison and that they're kind of interested in their image, and Andy Warhol, you know, I mean, he was interested in the Doors, and that sort of gives you that sort of vibe. But
they're so much better than the Velvet Underground.
I genuinely believe that Jim Morrison is actually quite a genuine character. I think he honestly, when he's on his stage persona, is honestly something that he was aspiring to. It was quite natural. That's a big demarcation with someone like David Bowie, who we've reviewed before, who is an actor essentially on stage.
Yeah.
Jim Morrison, I do feel, was genuine, whereas it is obvious that David Bowie was an actor.
I know Jim Morrison did say later on that he regretted posing and all that quite so much. So the first song, I mean, straight away you think, well, the last album started with Break On Through. So the next album is going to start with another great song. It's alright. It's got the fairgroundy thing going, and I don't think it's just the production. I think they are tighter. They've been playing around the world or whatever they've been doing. They're much clearer on what they should sound like, which is kind of good bad. They know what the Doors sound like when they made this album. It's not a massively powerful opening.
Fairly nice intro, and after that it's more sort of, just singing and
Singing and there's playing
instruments and stuff like that.
and there's a song.
Yeah. Did you know about the Ray Charles connection?
No.
No, well, I'll leave you to look that up on the internet, and there is a Ray Charles connection with this song.
Next song.
Your Lost Little Girl.
Yeah, meh. Really bare, that one. I think that's my least favourite. It just didn't do anything with it all. They're deliberately being boring.
I love that track.
But really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay,
It's imbued with atmosphere and vibe. Well, I can imagine someone like Matt Monro singing that. And suddenly people will like it. Right, next one's quite famous. Love Me Two Times.
Yeah, much more bluesy, really nice little licks going on. Quite a nice song, but the vocal performance was surprised me a bit, and it's a very understated vocal performance. I wasn't even sure if some of it was Morrison.
Yeah, it just sounds like he's sort of bluesy. He does put this gravelly thing in his voice. And this is that song. Famous song, alright. I prefer Your Lost Little Girl.
Next song.
Unhappy Girl.
Very, very 60s, obviously. It's a pop song, right? But it was at that point I spotted something. A bit of Spinal Tap. But they do it a couple of times, the dun dun dun. That's from Listen to the Flower People by Spinal Tap. So the Doors ripped off Spinal Tap.
Well, I'm very neutral on this. You're right, it sounds very, very 60s, which is strange, considering it was made in the 60s.
It's more about the cool sounds than the song.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
The intro's quite good, but it loses it after that. Right, next track, Horse Latitudes.
I really want to believe that title doesn't mean anything, because as a title of some avant-garde improvisation, that is a fantastic title. Sadly, I'm thinking it probably does mean something, and that's boring. The music is quite cool, noisy stuff going on, some funny shouting. If it's supposed to be funny, then I love it. I don't know whether it's meant to be funny though. And obviously the stuff the band does, it's much like Pink Floyd at the same time. It really does sound like Pink Floyd at the same time, rather than, the great improvisers.
Did you know Michael Collins was he commanded the lunar module that orbited the moon when Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin went down, and he is quite famous because he said he saw a UFO.
Yeah,
right.
That's awful.
He also said at the time that he saw a UFO, he heard some music playing.
Oh, he did.
But he wasn't sure what it was. It wasn't until a few years later that he actually heard this playing around someone's house that he recognised it, and it was Horse Latitudes.
Yeah, it's space music.
Yeah. Now I think Michael Collins is a little bit on that front, but I think that's quite cool and peculiar.
That is very peculiar, yeah.
Next track.
Pop song. Now you'd think after the sort of cool stuff that it'd be another pop song. This one's a lot better though, I quite like this one. I think this is better than before.
Unhappy Girl. Yeah, Moonlight Drive is probably one of my favourite Doors songs. There is a story that this was the song that Jim Morrison sang to Ray Manzarek on the beach when they were both bumming around, and this is where he realised that Jim Morrison was really onto something. But actually, it's just, again, it's very evocative, cool stuff. There's not much depth to it.
That's the evocative cool stuff is a brilliant way of
that is the Doors,
yeah. There's lots of slide guitar on this one as well. I've read somewhere or heard somewhere that once he picked up a slide, that was it. He was just going to play a slide forever now. And I think he's probably just comfortable with it. In the same way George Harrison didn't really find himself as a guitarist until he started doing slide. Because, you have to worry about less.
Yeah.
Less worrying about sustain and control and stuff like that. So, and it's nice.
Next track, People Are Strange by Echo and the Bunnymen.
I assume this was the single.
It got to number one in China before it got to number one in America, peculiarly.
Yeah, I'm not able to remove the context of The Lost Boys for me, because that's where I've heard the song. This is better than the Echo and the Bunnymen version, the original, obviously. But obviously the whole sort of horror, Little Shop of Horrors, Alice Cooper, I don't know what you call that thing, Addams Family vibe is really cool. Monster Mash.
We do the Monster Mash.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah,
brilliant.
But it's geared towards out-group people.
Yeah.
People who are strange, funny enough.
I mean, it seems very cynical, but I don't think it is. If someone did that now, I mean, that's kind of what Kurt Cobain was doing, and that was completely cynical. I don't think it really is. The underlying belief in what they were doing was real. Frank Zappa had already satirised this a year before they did it.
You say the Lost Boys thing, it is quite a memorable track from the Lost Boys.
Actually, some of the music on the Lost Boys is awful, and I only like it watching the film. I'm okay with watching the film because it's a famous film, but I would imagine that's the only good song on there, actually.
It's a 5-egg film.
It is a 5-egg film, in the context of 80s kitsch by the Explorers.
That's a 6-egg film. Next one, My Eyes Have Seen You.
Yeah. You do.
I have to admit that the production is very good, sort of. That bit of piano that come in there.
I mean, particularly for the time.
Perfect.
It's very well engineered for the time. Not much sounds that good in '67. Yeah, a little bit more weight to this song. It's really good. There's some nice playing on it. Vocals very understated again. He's doing his poppy voice rather than the Jim Morrison thing.
Yeah, it's not complicated, but they do. I mean, you can say it all sounds the same, but there is, oddly enough, they do manage to find variety in there.
But there is variety on this album, yeah.
But they have a very narrow set things they do, like Manzaraki does. His organ, he's having the organ sound, and then he's got the occasional bit of piano. But I mean, and then you got your Krieger, obviously, with your slide guitar and all that. It's the same tones and everything, but they managed to shake it up somehow.
Right. Yes. Next song.
I Can't See Your Face in My Mind.
Could you see it? Whose face was it?
That was Orson Welles.
Orson Welles. It was Orson Welles. That's who he was talking about in that song. Another intro makes me think of Bowie. I don't know why. Again, it's another song where it's almost not even a song. It's a nice little motif thing. Nice little stuff happens, and then he sings.
I don't know. I just really like that.
It's just a little thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you like the little thing, then that's cool.
Yeah, I like little oddities, little quirky things. Next track.
The next track is
When the Music's Over. Turn out the light.
There's a bit of repeating themselves with this song. It's strange, it does seem like with the rest of the album. They've made a concerted effort not to repeat themselves. By not having a big rock song at the start and things like that. But here, this obviously mirrors the end, except it isn't a long song. I mean, very cleverly, I think. It's a 2.5 minute song, and it actually stops. And then stylistically, it stretches out a bit in the second half, which is really cool. So that works as a two-part thing. There is a guitar solo on there, which is rubbish. Really, it's a naive guitar solo in that he probably heard while playing Hendrix whatever and thought, well, better do a bit of that. And he just goes, and then do it. You know, it's like he's worked out that lick and he thinks, wow. So he keeps doing it. So, but maybe that's unfair.
You don't.
If someone did that in 1990, they're a moron. But if someone does it in 1967, well, you know. And maybe I think what all the guitarists would think, in that you feel the energy of it and the way it comes back into the vocals, and you think, I could do better. And I think that's what all guitarists think, because it's a well-written song. I think that's what it is.
I mean, you don't listen to the Doors for guitar solos.
Almost, but there's a real energy there when it comes back into the vocals, and you think something amazing has happened, and something amazing hasn't happened. He's just gone, you know.
It's done for effect rather than a demonstration of artistry or skill.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, but it's a vibe, frightening vibe,
a vibe-inducing.
You know that
piece of work.
What's been done in rock guitar in the last 45 years means we have that knowledge that you could do that and it will be really, really frightening. It's not as good as the end.
Of course not, because the end is quite an awesome piece of work, but you can't do that on every album.
Well, no, they would have been better off doing something different, and they kind of didn't do anything different. It's very simple.
Okay, That's the end of the album.
That was the most understated review we've ever done. Oh, you know. So, join us next week for our final album of the Doors trilogy, Waiting in the Sun.
Waiting for the Sun.
I'm looking forward to that because obviously that was the first time they'd actually written some new material, lizards, stuff, and things. So,
good luck.
Good luck in your lives.
See you next week. Give us some excellent comments. Give us some bad comments.
Give us some terrible comments because I don't play with feeling.
Yeah. and we want.
Do you play with feeling?
No, don't be silly.
No, I don't play with feeling either. Go!